Today I'm going to be showing you how to cook up this oh so delicious creamy coconut chickpea curry. This curry is hearty, it's wholesome, it's bursting with flavor, as we're going to be adding an array of different spices and herbs, and I really think you guys are going to love it. To make this recipe, you have two options. If you're wanting to make this right now, you can use a regular 400 or 420 gram tin of chickpeas, or if you have a little more time on your hands, then you can do what I'll be doing in this video and use 1 cup or approximately 200 grams of dried chickpeas. If you're opting for dried chickpeas, you will need to prep them in advance by placing them in a bowl along with 4 cups of water and letting them soak overnight or for at least 8 hours. This allows the chickpeas to puff up as they soak up that water, making them a lot easier to cook. Something else I like to do, especially if I'm meal planning and I know I might be making this sometime during the coming weeks, is to actually soak a batch of these chickpeas ahead of time, pop them in an airtight container and store them in the freezer so they're ready to go for whenever I need them. Now, I've made this recipe using both tinned and dried chickpeas and they both taste amazing, but if you do have the option and the time, definitely go with the dried chickpeas. I just find they're more fresh and flavorful when cooked, and they also have a much creamier texture, which takes this curry to a whole other level. Aside from the chickpeas, you'll also need 1 diced brown onion, 3 cloves of minced garlic, 1 teaspoon of minced ginger, 3 diced tomatoes. I'm using fresh ones here, but alternatively you can use 1.5 tins of diced tomatoes. You'll also need 3 potatoes, 1 400ml tin of coconut milk, half a cup of freshly chopped coriander, and 2 tablespoons of olive oil or any cooking oil of your choice. Now for the spices. Today I'm using 3 pieces of cinnamon bark, 6 pieces of whole cardamom pods, and 6 pieces of whole cloves, 1 teaspoon of caraway seeds, 1/4 teaspoon of turmeric powder, 1/2 teaspoon of raw mango powder, 1 teaspoon each of cumin and coriander powder, 2 teaspoons each of garam masala, chili powder, and curry powder, and finally I'm using about 2 teaspoons of Himalayan pink salt, but you can always adjust this at the end as required. Now, I know that sounds like a heck of a lot of spices, but each spice really does add its own unique flavor and aroma to this dish, and once we blend in that coconut, it balances everything out and tastes so good. To make this recipe, start off by draining and rinsing your soaked chickpeas and placing them in a saucepan of boiling water. You want to cook your chickpeas for about 25 to 30 minutes until they're almost fully cooked, but they still have a slight bite to them, which is perfect as we do cook these for a little bit longer once we add them to the rest of the ingredients at the end. Whilst the chickpeas are cooking, we can move on to peeling the potatoes and placing them in a separate saucepan of boiling water and letting them boil until they're tender enough to mash with a fork, which for me took about 20 minutes. Once they're done, we can take them out of the water, mash them up, and set them aside. When the chickpeas have finished, we can remove them from the heat as well and drain out the water. You'll notice I did save the water from the cooked chickpeas, and that's just in case I want to adjust the consistency of the curry at the end. You might not need to do this, but I know some people prefer a thicker consistency and other people prefer a thinner consistency. So if you do need to adjust it, it's just a lot nicer to use this water as it already contains those flavors and nutrients from the chickpeas rather than using plain water. Now let's move on to making the main curry base. To a pan, add your oil and allow that to heat up before adding in all your whole spices. So your cinnamon bark, cardamom pods, cloves, and caraway seeds. Let them roast for about 30 seconds in the oil. This really helps bring out the aroma and flavors of these spices before adding in the diced onions. Saute the onions until they're translucent and golden brown, and then stir in your garlic and ginger. Let the garlic and ginger cook along with the onions for about 30 seconds to a minute before adding in the remaining ground spices. So the turmeric powder, raw mango powder, ground cumin, coriander, garam masala, chili and curry powder, and finally the salt. Mix everything until it's well combined and then add in the tomatoes. Let the tomatoes cook until they've reduced and softened, and then add in the mashed potatoes. Give everything a nice mix. At this point you should have a really thick gravy-like consistency, and then you can go ahead and add in the coconut milk and cooked chickpeas and mix them in. Let everything simmer together for about 7-8 minutes or so until the curry thickens and the chickpeas are tender and fully cooked. Add in your freshly chopped coriander, stir that through, and you're done. Your curry is ready to be enjoyed. You can pair this with some cooked rice or some bread or a mix of both, whatever you like. Usually when I make this recipe, I use a pressure cooker as it speeds up the cooking time significantly, but I have had some friends mention that they don't own a pressure cooker or a slow cooker, so I really wanted to show you guys how to make this with just the regular pots and pans. I will, however, leave the written recipe below along with the different variations on how to make this, so feel free to check that out as well. I hope you enjoyed this one and you'll give it a try. Let me know how it turns out in the comments if you do, and feel free to ask me any questions as well. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next week.